Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name is David Moore. I'm the police chief in Janesville. To my right is Lieutenant Chuck Agard with the Janesville Police Department. To my immediate left is Sheriff Jeff Scatrud with the Greene County Sheriff's Department. And to the far left is Chief Fred Kelly from the Monroe Police Department. Last evening, Janesville officers responded to a report of a shooting in the 2600 block of Kellogg Avenue in Janesville. Officers located a 41-year-old male victim dead at the scene with apparent gunshot wounds. As a result of the death, officers arrested Lucas Stewart, age 39, of Brownstown, Wisconsin, for first-degree intentional homicide. While this is not a domestic homicide, it is related to a domestic relationship. Stewart was in a long-time relationship with Amanda Malmquist, age 37, of Brownstown, Wisconsin. Stewart and Malmquist's relationship was in the process of ending. The victim was a friend of Malmquist and was visited by Malmquist at the time of the homicide. The victim will be identified upon proper notification of family. Janesville experiences relatively few homicides, averaging less than 2 a year. 2/3 of these homicides are domestic related. We work hard to put programs and initiatives in place for domestic violence issues and work cooperatively with our community partners, most notably the YWCA. Because we have few homicides, we were able to assign significant resources when they occur. In this investigation, 20 officers were assigned. I want to extend our thanks to the Greene County Sheriff's Office, the Monroe Police Department, and the Broadhead Police Department for their assistance in the apprehension of Stewart. Our thoughts and concerns are extended to the family members affected by this homicide, including the victim's family and Malmquist families. Folks, when we have these homicides, there are many, many people that are affected when they occur. And I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Agard, and he can walk you through some more details of the events last evening. Lieutenant.
Thank you, Chief. I'm going to begin with an incident summary. Yesterday, January 23rd at 6 p.m., Janesville Police responded to a report of a gunshot victim at a residence in the 2600 block of Kellogg. Responding officers learned that a confrontation between two men outside the residence ended with a 39-year-old Greene County man shooting a 41-year-old Janesville resident several times. The weapon used was a semi-automatic handgun. The victim was shot multiple times and died at the scene. The suspect in this incident then fled the scene in a dark-colored SUV. The witness at the scene knew both the suspect and the victim. She had ended a relationship with the suspect and started a relationship with the victim. She is identified as Amanda Malmquist, 37, of Brownstown, Wisconsin. Information about the incident and the vehicle description was given out to neighboring law enforcement agencies, including the Greene County Sheriff's Department and the Monroe Police Department. Deputies from Greene County and an officer from the Monroe Police Department located the suspect vehicle and engaged in a vehicle pursuit. The suspect was eventually taken into custody near the Crazy Horse campground, and that is near Broadhead, Wisconsin. We were able to recover a handgun. It was recovered when the suspect was arrested at the Crazy Horse campground. And again, the victim's information is not being released because his family has not been yet notified of his death. I have some handouts for this suspect that we arrested up front, and you're welcome to come up and take one when we're all done. His name is Lucas E. Stewart. He's 39. He's a Greene County resident, and he is charged with first-degree intentional homicide. Our victim information: he's 41, a male. He lived in the 2600 block of Kellogg Avenue. The victim and the suspect had never met before. And further information on the victim will be made available after his family is notified. So I have some maps. The first map is the 2600 block of Kellogg where the shooting took place. Again, we're not going to name the exact location today. We'll do that at a later time after the family's been notified. This is the location of the suspect's arrest, and that is the Crazy Horse Campground. In this map, you can see Broadhead is off to the right side of the margin, and that would be to the east. Crazy Horse is located west of there. There was a vehicle pursuit through Greene County, and this is a map of the start of the vehicle pursuit. It's near Browntown. It's on Highway 11, and it's located between Browntown and the city of Monroe, Wisconsin. It did include some contact information. That's my email on the top. Then there's contact information for both the Greene County and the Monroe Police Department. And if you have any questions, I can try to answer them at this time.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have many of the family members of the affected families, and I would ask that family members don't ask questions. This is intended for the media. But what I can tell you is we would be glad to meet with you afterwards as long as necessary, and we, in a private setting, I think, answer those questions for the family. Thank you.
Lieutenant, prior to this violence, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce the woman's name correctly because I don't have it written down, but the woman, had she ever made contact with any concerns about Lucas Stewart?
We are looking into that, and there is a history between Ms. Malmquist and the suspect, and there has been some domestic violence related contacts between them that we're still looking into.
Was there a restraining order in place at the time this occurred?
Not that I'm aware of. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Did the shooting take place at the victim's residence?
Yes.
It was outside of the home.
Yes, the scene was outside.
Can you describe or relate any information about the moments that led up to the shooting? Was there a physical altercation? Can you characterize that in any way?
I would characterize it as a verbal altercation.
What was the pursuit? I was a little confused at your map. Was the pursuit from somewhere on Highway 11 between Broadhead and Janesville west, or was it from over by Monroe and east?
It started in that area that I had on the map, which I can go back and show you. But it was predominantly headed east on Highway 11, and then it
East on towards Broadhead.
Correct.
Okay.
Had Ms. Mumquist just recently moved to Janesville and left Lucas Stewart? Was this happening in the moment, if you will, as she was leaving this relationship, or had she been a Janesville resident for a while?
Well, she lived in Browntown, and it's hard to quantify at this point with the knowledge that we have the status of what she was doing at the time in terms of her living arrangements. But with all the information we have, she lived in Browntown.
Are you aware of how the suspect knew that she was at the victim's home, whether she was followed, or do you have any of those details?
We've asked the question of the suspect, but we're not sure. We haven't been able to determine that yet.
Shooting took place outside the home in a driveway, and then suspect gets back in a vehicle and drives off?
Correct.
Okay.
How long did the victim live in Janesville?
I'm not aware of that information. He'd been a lifelong Janesville resident, but at the residence on Kellogg, I'm not sure.
And what was the relationship between the suspect, or pardon me, the victim and Amanda? Were they friends, or?
Again, we believe that they had just started a relationship. All right.
I'm sorry, maybe I missed it. Was there a time that between ending one relationship and the other one? Do you have any information on?
I don't have a good way to answer that, I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
And anything else that could have led up to this as a possible motive other than he was upset or anything like that? But was there any interaction between him and the victim beforehand or
No.
anything?
There wasn't any interaction.
Has the suspect made any kind of a statement to police or investigators at this point?
We interviewed him, there was a brief statement last night.
Can you share any details of the
No.
statement?
Where-
Lieutenant, that past domestic violence, did that include threats to harm anyone who would interfere with the relationship Ms. Momquest had with Lucas Stewart?
So I'm just aware that reviewing, there's a lot of reports to review, and I haven't had a chance to read all of them. So I just can characterize that there was a domestic relationship.
And there had been domestic violence?
Yes, but I'm not sure on all of those until I get up to speed. This investigation is, is within its 24 hours still, and we have a lot of investigating yet to do.
Where is the suspect being held?
Rock
And
County.
when will, he's being held in Rock County?
Yes.
And court appearance?
Not sure on that, but it would be at the earliest tomorrow. Do
Can
have
you
a question?
talk a little bit more about the pursuit and how both departments kind of work together in this situation?
Yes, I can. Sheriff, would you like to say something? Sure.
A Monroe police officer originally saw the suspect vehicle on State Highway 11 just outside the city of Monroe, and he was in the city of Monroe at the time, I believe. Our deputies were west of Monroe at the suspect's, or in the vicinity of the suspect's residence. The Monroe officer began to follow the suspect's vehicle, and they set up a plan to pull him over. He pulled into his driveway and drove between buildings through the snow, through a snow-covered field, merged back on State Highway 11, and then turned around and went eastbound on Highway 11.
Okay.
The pursuit passed by the city of Monroe on Highway 11 all the way to Broadhead. He did avoid some stop sticks or tire deflation devices that were set up before the city. Drove through the city of Broadhead and turned westbound and traveled on County Trunk F about a mile or so to where he drove into a Crazy Horse Campground, which is also a mobile home community.
Did he crash, Sheriff, there? Is that what stopped the pursuit?
No, he stopped in a private driveway. It was a dead end, and he really couldn't get any farther.
Were ice on the road, snow on the road a concern for any officers that responded last night?
It was remarkably dry. Traffic was light, so there was it was as safe as you could get under those circumstances for that type of an incident.
Sheriff, the home where I'm going to mispronounce, is it Cadiz? Is that the community?
Cadiz.
Cadiz. That's where he stopped initially?
He never did stop. He drove into his driveway with the squad cars right behind him and just drove between buildings and out into the field.
And did he drive off the road to avoid the deflation devices?
I don't know how he did avoid those, but he did avoid them.
And then when the vehicle was stopped, was there any element of him resisting or trying to flee on foot or anything like that, or was it relatively, did he kind of turn himself over?
He exited his car as commanded by our deputy. He had a pistol in his car, which he discarded at our deputy's direction. He did reach back into his car, and our deputy's canine was deployed. Not a bite, not a bark, but was just displayed, and he became cooperative after that and was taken into custody.
Do you know how the suspect found the victim's residence?
We don't know.
At this point, do you know whether the gun was, or how the gun was acquired, whether he was legally allowed to own a gun or carry a gun?
Yeah, the information we have is he wouldn't be restricted from owning the handgun.
This could be either for Lieutenant Agard or Chief Moore. Can you speak a little bit to that area of Janesville? A lot of neighbors I spoke with said this is relatively a calm, quiet area, and like you mentioned, Chief Moore, very infrequent to have something like this happen, but can you speak a little bit to, I guess, any sort of history of what that area is like, or if crime is usually an issue there, or if this is kind of an infrequent thing?
Yeah, it would be fair to characterize this as an infrequent event. Nice neighborhoods, good people, not particularly expensive housing, good hardworking people. But yeah, we just haven't had any crime issues, certainly not like this, although we did have a shooting down in that general neighborhood about a year ago, I believe. But the two are so distinctly different. These type of incidents could occur in any neighborhood, any community, anytime. These two just happen to be within about a half mile of one another. I don't connect the two.
And then I know you mentioned that there's 20 officers that are going to be placed just with this homicide case, but can you speak to how, since these are such infrequent events, you really do have the resources to deploy when something like this does happen?
We feel a strong commitment to our victims' families, and like I said, we do not have many homicides, and we're in the very fortunate situation. We bring everybody in. Lieutenant Agard had his whole detective bureau in. They worked till about 1 o'clock this morning. We will continue bringing patrol officers in until we can provide the good service for the family and assure that there is a prosecutable case and represent the victims' concerns.
Sheriff, just to follow up, were your deputies in a situation where they had to even consider discontinuing the pursuit? Some people in Broadhead have told us that they estimated that the vehicles were traveling upwards of 50 miles an hour through the city proper, and also there was a question about road conditions, and you did say they were remarkably dry considering the snowfall level, but is that something that was being contemplated if he had not made that turn?
The reports that I reviewed, and I spoke with the officers involved, and they indicated that the top speed was 30 miles an hour through the city of Broadhead.
Did the victim live with anyone? Was there anyone in the residence? Anyone else?
Yes. The victim lived with a male roommate.
Was that person involved at all?
No. And was not at home.
You said the shooting took place outside of the home in the driveway area. Were any, could you determine if there were any rounds that, you know, struck another building, or was it contained right in that area? And
Yeah.
I asked that in terms of any danger to neighbors and that sort of thing.
Yes, so the rounds that were fired were all contained in one area.
And Lieutenant Sturr is not a convicted felon?
Correct.
Okay.